Opening my eyes, I became the emperor of Great Chu. I was about to select a consort for the night, but the stunning beauty was trembling in fear. Your Majesty, even a consort's bed service requires the eunuch's approval first. I, the emperor, need a eunuch's permission to sleep with my own woman. Furious, I stormed into the court. All civil and military officials were late collectively, with the Grand Chancellor leading the contempt against me. The most absurd was an old man in charge of sacrifices who pointed at me on the dragon throne and yelled, "You tyrant, you are not fit to rule." When I opened my eyes, my head felt like it was about to explode. Beside the bed knelt a young beauty of 16 or 17, her skin glowing white, looking at me with tearful eyes. Absolutely a peerless beauty. I stared dumbfounded, thinking it was a dream. Since it was a dream, I could do whatever I wanted, right? Just as I was about to pounce, a flood of memories poured into my mind. Hongwu era, Great Chu Kingdom. I am now Emperor Xia Ze. Unfortunately, the original owner was weak, incompetent, and indulged in women power had long slipped away. This little beauty before me is noble consort Dong, one of the 4 beauties of Jiangnan. In the palace, only the alluring noble consort, Su, can match her looks. My throat tightened, and I pulled her into my arms. "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" "Mir, I command you to serve me tonight." Consort Dong trembled in fear. "Your Majesty, you must not. If the 9,000 years finds out I've served you, I fear I won't live to see tomorrow." "To hell with the 9,000 years. I am the emperor. If he so much as touches a hair on your head, I'll exterminate his entire clan." But the mention of that name sobered me up instantly. The 9,000 years, Su Yong, the chief eunuch of the Directorate of Ceremonial. It was he who had turned me into a puppet. I also remembered that a few days ago, the original owner of this body was pushed into a lake by a palace maid and nearly drowned. After that, he grew weaker by the day, and today he simply died. There's something wrong with the medicine. There's a rat in the palace. Just as I was thinking this, an old matron entered with a bowl of medicine. Seeing Consort Dong in my arms, she burst out cursing. "You little hussy! How dare you sneak in and seduce His Majesty?" This Nanny Huang, accustomed to throwing her weight around the palace on Consort Su's authority, yanked Consort Dong out of bed, summoned 2 strong palace maids to pin her down, and pulled a silver needle from the brocade pouch at her waist to stab her. Blood gushed from Consort Dong's arm as she cried out in pain. The old hag grew more excited with each stab, spitting and laughing. "You little slut! See if I don't stab you to death." "Stop!" I threw off the covers and stood up, my eyes blazing with fury. "You insolent slave! How dare you bully my woman? Who gave you the dog's audacity?" Nanny Huang was startled by my imposing manner, but soon recovered, emboldened by Consort Su's backing and showing no fear. My rage blazing, I swung my fist and struck her. Thump! 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 Several teeth flew out mixed with blood. Nanny Huang collapsed wailing, her face full of terror as she scrambled backward. "No, please. This servant knows her wrongs." I closed in with a ferocious expression, my fists dripping with blood. "Old bastard, you were so arrogant just now. Now you know you're wrong?" Too late. I kicked her hard in the head, and she fell unconscious. The entire hall was stunned into dead silence. I turned around and carefully lifted the sleeve of Consort Dong's robe. Several bloody cuts on her snow-white wrist were horrifying. My heart ached. I blamed myself. "Mir, I've let you suffer." Consort Dong stared at me blankly, her eyes welling up again. The emperor before would never have treated her this way. Just then, a timid palace maid brought over a bowl of medicine. "Your Majesty, it's time for your medicine." My eyes turned cold. Falling into the water wouldn't kill anyone. The problem was likely in this medicine. Consort Su was Su Yong's sister, and she had sent this medicine. "Get lost. I won't drink it." I slapped the bowl away. Suddenly, I remembered something more important. "Mir, who pushed me into the water?" Consort Dong hesitated, then said the Ministry of Justice had determined it was orchestrated by Tang Lai, the left guard general of the Imperial Guard. But she added in a low voice, "Your subject has heard that General Tang has always been dutiful and loyal. How could he plot against your Majesty?" My mind exploded. The Imperial Guard protects the royal family. Tang Lai's family has guarded the palace for 3 generations. How could he rebel against the sovereign, and with such crude methods? "Where is Tang Lai now?" "Your Majesty, it is almost the execution hour." General Tang is about to be beheaded at the Meridian Gate. I rushed out and ran madly toward the Meridian Gate. If Tang Lai dies, it will be like cutting off my right arm. On the palace path, 7 or 8 Imperial Guard officers came swaggering over. The young officer at the lead was Consort Su's younger brother, Su Hong. He actually reached out to hook my shoulder and grinned cheekily. "Brother-in-law, why are you running around dressed like that? Are you sick or something?" Huh? I had no mood to deal with this dandy. I roughly knocked his hand away. "Get lost." Su Hong, humiliated in public, actually grabbed my arm, sneering. "Calling you brother-in-law makes you cocky. Huh? Apologize to this general, or don't even think about leaving." My eyes turned icy. I gritted my teeth. "The hell, I'll apologize." I yanked the sword from the waist of a nearby officer. Swish! A cold gleam flashed. The officer screamed and collapsed dead. I kicked Su Hong over and dashed toward the Meridian Gate without looking back. At the Meridian Gate execution ground, Tang Lai, covered in wounds, knelt before the decapitation platform. His white prisoner's robe was mostly stained red with blood. The supervising executioner was a pale-faced eunuch. I recognized him as Su Yong's adopted son. Su Shi, one of the 10 boys. The executioner was about to drop the blade. "Stop! Put down the sword!" I roared. The executioner, terrified, immediately knelt. I rushed over to Tang Lai, looking at him covered in blood, my hands trembling. "General Tang, you have been wronged." Seeing me disheveled and panting heavily, Tang Lai's eyes instantly filled with tears. He choked out, "I am guilty for failing to protect your majesty, but the true culprit is still at large. I only beg your majesty to uncover the truth. I have seen your loyalty, General Tang. If you wanted to kill me, you could have sent an assassin. Why go to the trouble of bribing a palace made to push me into the water? That would be overcomplicating things, wouldn't it?" I turned and angrily shouted at the guards, "Come and remove General Tang's shackles at once." But Su Shi stepped forward to block me, sneering, "Your Majesty, the palace maid personally confessed that Tang Lai ordered it. The evidence is solid. Bring the maid out to confront him." That maid, knowing her crime was grave, has bitten off her tongue and died, I said with a cold laugh. You can't even keep watch over a maid, letting her finish her confession before committing suicide. How can a single accusation condemn a third-rank minister? 4 or 5 young eunuchs stepped out from behind Su Shi, speaking in unison that they had heard the maid accuse Tang Lai with their own ears. I shouted, "Seize Su Shi and the others." But the guards exchanged glances, none daring to move. Su Shi burst into arrogant laughter. "My godfather is the 9,000-year-old. Which of you dares to touch me?" The mere mention of his name carries more weight than I, the emperor. Su Shi even snatched the executioner's blade, sneering, "Since your majesty is being deceived, let me, this slave, kill this source of calamity for you." He was about to behead Tang Lai right before my eyes. My head exploded with rage. The killing intent arose. A eunuch daring to defy the imperial decree and kill a third-rank minister before the emperor, unheard of. I snatched the guard's saber and swung it down. "Xia Ze, you've lost your mind. My godfather is the 9,000. Thud. Su Shi fell to the ground, dead without closing his eyes. The entire place fell into dead silence. I held the blood-stained blade, my gaze icy, the majesty of the emperor radiating outward. The few young eunuchs were scared out of their wits, kowtowing like pounding garlic. "Your Majesty, spare us." It was Su Shi who forced us to say those things. It had nothing to do with us. What a palace eunuch, daring to frame the Imperial Guard General who gave you the guts? And Minister of Justice Gu Chun, rushing to a verdict and wronging a high official. What use is such trash? Deliver my decree. Tell him to go home and retire. As soon as the words were spoken, 600 or 700 Imperial Guards rushed to the palace gate, kneeling in unison and shouting, "Your Majesty, please see clearly General Tang has been wronged." I said calmly, "I've already investigated this matter. Tang Lai is hereby reinstated immediately." The guards were overjoyed and kowtowed in gratitude. I cast a cold glance at the guards who had dared not act earlier. "Tang Lai, drive these lawless dogs out of the palace. They are never to serve in the Imperial Guard again." Tang Lai's spirits lifted as he loudly accepted the order. On the way back to the palace, I gradually sorted out the political landscape of the court. Su Yong, relying on his merit in supporting my ascension and sending his own sister into the palace, had been promoted multiple times. Now wielding great power, he had become the most powerful eunuch of the era. The ministers of war, justice, and public works were his trusted men. The court of judicial review and the court of imperial sacrifices were also under his control. Did this great Chu dynasty belong to the Xia family or the Su family? Returning to the Qinxing Palace, Consort Dong was lost in a daze, waiting as quietly as an exquisite work of art. I smiled and lifted her chin. Which young lady is this? She is truly lovely. Her pretty face flushed scarlet instantly. Her voice was soft and trembling. Your Majesty, you've finally returned. I was so worried about you. This sound was like a fuse. I couldn't hold back any longer, pulling her into my arms and kissing her. Just as I laid her on the bed, Wei Yan's voice sounded from outside. Your Majesty, Consort Su and Su Yong request an audience. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. Consort Su was indeed alluring and enchanting, her eyes full of spring. She was the kind of seductress who could tempt anyone to sin. No wonder the original emperor had showered all his favor upon her. The moment she entered, she apologized in a honeyed voice, saying that Imperial Nurse Huang had offended me and that she had already punished her severely. Su Yong stood to the side, a handsome and elegant man, but his words sent chills down one's spine. Su Hong offended the imperial carriage and deserves death. This servant begged your Majesty to execute Su Hong to uphold the law. This was a test for me. I said indifferently, Lord Su exaggerates. Su Hong's first offense does not warrant death. Let him be confined for a few days to reflect. Consort Su breathed a sigh of relief, her body softly pressing against mine, her breath fragrant as orchid. Your concubine thanks your Majesty on behalf of my younger brother. That touch so soft. I almost lost my composure. But the thought that this woman might have killed the original owner immediately cooled me down. I gently pushed her away. After the Su siblings left, I turned over and pressed down on her, interlacing my fingers with Consort Dong's. Mir, now no one will disturb us. Her eyes were moist, and she said tremblingly, Your Majesty, I am still a virgin. Please be gentle with me. A tremor passed through my heart. Mir, rest assured, I said solemnly. I will never betray you. During their playful scuffle, Consort Dong's clothes came partly undone, revealing a large expanse of enticing snow-white skin. Xia Ze could no longer restrain himself and pounced on her like a wolf on its prey. After a long while, he looked at Consort Dong, who was biting her lip, holding back the glistening tears in her eyes. Her face flushed. Xia Ze smiled, feeling quite satisfied. As for Consort Dong, her face was full of shyness, and she dared not look at Xia Ze. She closed her eyes, tilted her head back, revealing a patch of snow-white skin below her neck. Moments later, the deflowered imperial consort lay weakly on the bed, her upper body limp, as if completely drained. The next day, Xia Ze pillowed his head on her jade-like arm, looking content and quite languid. Just then, a knock came at the door. Your Majesty, it's time for the morning court. No, I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay here with the consort. With that, Xia Ze turned over and tightly embraced Consort Dong's soft, boneless body. Hearing this, Consort Dong's pretty face showed surprise, and she quickly pushed against Xia Ze. Your Majesty, you must not. The court is beset with internal strife and external threats. You cannot afford to be negligent. Xia Ze was taken aback. He only then recalled that the court's power structure had already been carved up by the eunuch faction. As the emperor, if he continued to skip the morning court, the realm would likely change hands. Go to court? How could I not go? A sharp gleam flashed in Xia Ze's eyes, exuding the aura of an emperor. It's time to see the faces of the civil and military officials at court. In the Golden Throne Hall, the civil and military officials stood on either side, imposing and majestic. When Xia Ze, dressed in a black gold dragon robe, sat imperiously on the dragon throne, looking down upon those high-ranking ministers. At that moment, the emperor's ambition and desire swelled within him. This great Shu realm I wanted. Xia Ze reigned in his soaring spirit and asked calmly, Wei Yan, have all the officials arrived? Wei Yan hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice from the side, Reporting to your Majesty, the Grand Master of Ceremonies Qian Feng, the Director of the Seal Office Wang Gui, the Marquis of Pingxiang Chenhuai, and more than 10 others have not yet arrived. Led by Minister of War Cui Xiu, 5 officials who exclusively advised Su Yong were known as the 5 Tigers. Qin Feng was a member of the eunuch faction, one of the 5 Tigers, highly valued by Su Yong. Daring to be late for such an important occasion as the morning court truly, he doesn't take me, the emperor, seriously. Qin Feng and Wang Gue, is it? A glint of cruelty flashed in his eyes as he noted them down. No more waiting. Begin the morning court. Then Wei Yan, with his raspy voice, shouted with great authority. Court is in session. Clearly, he had done this many times before. Long live the emperor! Long live the emperor! Long live the emperor! Of all the civil and military officials, only a scant few performed the kowtow ritual. The rest stood still, showing no reaction at all. Everyone looked toward the white-haired Prime Minister Chao. A cold sneer curled at the corner of Prime Minister Chao's mouth as he faintly lowered his gaze. Only then did he sweep his sleeves, kneel slowly with a composed expression, and nonchalantly intone, "Long live the emperor." Seeing this, the other officials finally knelt and shouted "Long live." But their voices were scattered and lifeless, clearly just going through the motions. Boom! Xia Ze's head exploded. His chest was stifling hot, almost bursting. Damn it! The inner palace was full of Su Yong's minions, running amok and trampling on imperial authority. And in the outer court, it was all Chancellor Chao's faction, dominating everything and showing contempt for the emperor. As an emperor, he was beset with internal and external troubles. Reclaiming his imperial power was extremely urgent. All my beloved ministers, rise. Xia Ze forced these words out through gritted teeth. He shot a piercing glance at Chancellor Chao, whose protégés filled both court and countryside. As the head of all officials, he yet joined with the eunuch faction to oppress him. This grievance I will surely repay. If there are matters to report, report them. If not, the court is dismissed. As Wei Yan's voice fell, a middle-aged official stepped out from the crowd and shouted, "I, your subject, accuse Ding Ji, the director of the Ministry of War, of embezzlement and bribery." Bullshit. I, your father, take bribes? Fuck your mother. Yin Shun. You little censor, are you out of your mind to dare falsely accuse me? At that time, a tall military officer had no qualms about cursing back at the imperial court in front of the emperor himself in the most vulgar terms. The censors from the censorate were a bunch of professional critics, lashing out at heaven, earth, and even the emperor. The two immediately locked horns, turning the Grand Throne Hall into a racket like a street market. Grand Chancellor Chao stood among the crowd, his expression calm and silent, saying nothing. Xia Ze's face darkened, his expression full of displeasure as he said, deeply unsatisfied, "Let me have some quiet." But the two were so caught up in their quarrel that they not only ignored Xia Ze's admonition, but even resorted to blows right in front of the emperor. Since the reign of the founding emperor, which dynasty's court had ever seen ministers brawling during a session? It was unprecedented, and yet Xia Ze, as the sovereign, couldn't even stop them. Where, then, lay the emperor's authority? Snap! Xia Ze ground his teeth in fury, his fingers itching as he fiercely gripped the right armrest of his dragon throne, then bellowed. "I said stop. Are you all deaf? If you're so eager to fight, I'll let you go at it to your heart's content at the Meridian Gate." This sudden outburst startled the two people who were arguing. They snorted coldly at each other and returned to their respective groups. Xia Ze let out a long breath, his face full of anger, and asked impatiently, "Is there anything else? Speak quickly, for we are listening." Suddenly, a young official stepped out from the crowd and knelt heavily, making a thud. He looked impassioned, his whole body trembling, his hair bristling with anger, and he roared, "Your subject impeaches the eunuch director of the Directorate of Ceremonial, Su Yong, for 24 major crimes." This shout was like a thunderclap breaking through the sky. The entire court fell silent, and all turned to look askance. Which one of these fearless fools is this, daring to impeach the 9,000-year-old Su Yong in the court? Xia Ze's whole body shook. With a surprised expression, he looked up and saw that the impeacher was a middle-aged official full of righteous indignation. He thought carefully for a moment. Only then did he recall that this man was named Yang Qing, a censor from the censorate. He had never formed cliques for personal gain, and was clearly separate from the Prime Minister's faction and the eunuch faction, with no connection whatsoever. In fact, over the past few years, Yang Qing, had frequently submitted memorials advising the original emperor to diligently govern the country. But unfortunately, there was no result. He is a loyal minister. Your Majesty, over the years, Su Yong has deceived the throne, eliminated dissidents, framed the loyal, plotted treason, and murdered the innocent. Yang Qing's spirits were high, his face filled with righteous indignation, and he passionately listed Su Yong's crimes in a loud voice. But before he could finish, he was interrupted by Xia Ze. Lord Su is a loyal and virtuous man. How dare you slander him so recklessly? Guards, dismiss Yang Qing from his post and immediately banish him beyond Jiong Pass. You are a loyal minister, but I can only protect you in this way. Otherwise, after today, the eunuch faction will not tolerate you and may harm you. Once I have eradicated the eunuch faction, I will surely send a royal carriage to bring you back. Upon hearing this, Yang Qing's eyes widened with rage and grief. Disappointed, he couldn't hold back his tears and cried out loudly. If Su Yong is not eliminated, the realm will never be at peace, Your Majesty. Soon, Yang Qing was dragged away. The officials were not surprised by Xia Ze's reaction. In the past, those who impeached Su Yong had mostly met the same fate. For a moment, the corners of the officials' mouths curled into sneers, full of contempt for Xia Ze. The emperor is still the same useless emperor. The storm has temporarily subsided. Shun Xiao, a Longzhong of the Ministry of Personnel, stepped forward and submitted a memorial, saying, Your Majesty, Gu Chun, the Minister of Justice, has been derelict of duty and has now been dismissed from his post. The position of Minister of Justice must be filled by a capable minister as soon as possible to prevent chaos in the ministry. Gu Chun, the former Minister of Justice, was an accomplice and henchman of Su Yong. He was one of the 5 tigers. Over the years, Gu Chun helped Su Yong arrest countless loyal officials, and the Ministry of Justice prison has been stained red with the blood of many ministers. So yesterday, Xia Ze took advantage of the situation, used it as a pretext, and cleverly removed Gu Chun from his position as Minister of Justice. Minister of Justice, he murmured softly. This is an important position. I must install my own trusted person there. My ministers, do you have any candidates? Shun Xiao immediately said, I recommend Chun Fei, the left Vice Minister of Justice, for the post of minister. He belongs to Chancellor Chao's faction. He is a member of the Chancellor's clique. He should strive for the interests of the Chancellor's clique. Ding Ji, a Longzhong of the Ministry of War, stepped forward and said calmly, Chun Fei is not capable. I recommend instead Ning Su, a director of the Ministry of Justice. He was promoted by Su Yong, so naturally he has to consider the interests of a eunuch faction. The Chancellor faction and the eunuch faction only unite when facing Xia Ze. At other times, squabbling is a daily occurrence. Xia Ze remained silent, coldly watching the 2 factions argue over the position of minister. In fact, he clenched his teeth so hard he nearly ground them to dust. These damned wretches, quarreling endlessly in his presence again. Where does that leave him, the emperor? Imperial power has fallen by the wayside. They show no respect for the sovereign, such a disgrace. Just then, the dozen or so officials who were late for the morning court leisurely entered the throne hall. Among them, an old man with graying hair sauntered in and said lazily, Your Majesty, I have a memorial to present. Xia Ze recognized this old man as Qian Feng, the chief minister of the imperial clan, in charge of royal sacrifices. In principle, this kind of imperial clan official should be on his side. But Qian Feng, shamelessly clinging to the thigh of that damned eunuch Su Yong, willingly acted as his henchman and committed no shortage of evil deeds. Xia Ze sat on the dragon throne and asked impatiently, What is it? That old man, not caring about Xia Ze's attitude, simply spoke loudly on his own. I heard that a few days ago, Your Majesty ordered the Ministry of Revenue to allocate funds for purchasing some jewelry for the harem, intending to give them as gifts to the consorts. Xia Ze had some recollection of this. It was something the original host had done before falling into the water. Speaking of which, the original host's harem had only a few consorts. Buying some jewelry wouldn't cost much anyway. What about this matter? You can buy, but the Ministry of Revenue is not going to pay. His heart skipped a beat. Xia Stund. Instead, rage flared within him. It surged up abruptly. His face suddenly turned cold, and he said through gritted teeth, What does the Ministry of Revenue's Affairs have to do with you? A court of imperial sacrifices official. And what's wrong with me buying some small gifts for the consorts? Damn it! Am I spending your fucking money? Qian Feng, seeing Xia Ze's anger turning to shame, said with a disdainful and loud voice, "Your Majesty, you must know that wise rulers throughout history have never favored jewels. For instance, Emperor Lai Wu and Yuan Wuzu. Now that you've been on the throne for only 5 years, you've already begun to indulge in such luxury. Once you let this slide, the consequences will be dire. Now that there's fighting in the Liangguang region, how can you ignore the affairs of state?" Xia Ze was furious. In his utmost rage, a cold gleam shot from his eyes, and he roared. Buying a few jewels is now being elevated to matters of state? Are you old fool, trying to rebel? An official in charge of imperial sacrifices, not a censor. You have no right to meddle in my affairs. This old codger doesn't know when to quit. He temporarily suppressed his anger and turned to Hong Sheng, the Minister of Revenue, asking, "As for this sum of money, what does the Ministry of Revenue have to say?" Hong Sheng said dismissively, "I implore your Majesty not to waste the people's hard-earned wealth on such useless things." Xia Ze's eyes blazed with murderous intent. And who, exactly, is the one leeching off that hard-earned wealth? Don't these bastards have any self-awareness? His brows furrowed tightly as an uncontrollable surge of rage rose from his core. "If I insist on buying these jewels, then I beg your pardon, but I cannot provide the funds." Hong Sheng also crisply followed with such a blunt statement. The court officials, however, remained indifferent. All of them were gloating, making Xia Ze lose all his face. Even Prime Minister Chao gave a faint smile, clearly enjoying the spectacle. To be an emperor as pathetic as Xia Ze was really humiliating. His eyelids twitched, his eyes filled with murderous intent, and his teeth gritted so hard they might crack. What a fine court of imperial sacrifices. What a fine Minister of Revenue. Qian Feng couldn't help sneering. This useless emperor only has these tricks. He continued, "Your Majesty, the people are now destitute. Every household is cleaned out. Corruption runs rampant in officialdom. Greed and deceit are ingrained. The state's revenue cannot cover expenses, and deficits occur every year. Our great Chu empire has gradually slid to the brink of collapse. The nation is in crisis." Veins bulged on Xia Ze's forehead, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. He shot a dangerous glare at Qian Feng, laughing in cold fury. "Qian Feng, are you suggesting by these words that all of this is my doing? Let's set aside the matter of the jewels for now. What else does this old fool want? Alas, your Majesty, you should know your own failure." The moment Qian Feng shamelessly uttered those words, Xia Ze could no longer contain his rage, slamming his fist against the dragon throne with a resounding thud. He glared coldly and shouted, "You old villain, if you dare speak another half-sentence today, I'll send you to the Ministry of Justice prison to retire." Faced with Xia Ze's furious outburst, not only did the civil and military officials show no reaction, but even Qian Feng remained unafraid. Shangbao Chengwang Gue sneered and took the initiative to speak for Qian Feng, but his words were aimed at condemning Xia Ze. "Your Majesty, weigh your words. Lord Qian is utterly loyal. Good advice has always been harsh to the ear. How can your Majesty, like some debauched ruler, arbitrarily punish a loyal minister? Would that not break the hearts of the loyal?" Qian Feng deliberately let out a heavy sigh and said, "Alas, your Majesty, of all things to learn, why must you learn to be a tyrant? How can this great Chu empire be governed by a tyrant?" These words were truly a lethal blow. Xia Ze suddenly stood up, his gaze piercing cold, on the verge of eruption. He fixed his eyes on Qian Feng and demanded loudly, "Qian Feng, if I'm a tyrant, what do you intend to do with me? Do you want me to abdicate in favor of a worthier ruler?" Qian Feng's lips curled into a smug smile, and he said arrogantly, "If your Majesty can mend your ways, that would be ideal. If not, then please consider relocating outside the capital." Xia Ze's head buzzed with ringing. His eyes widened in disbelief. What does this old bastard mean? Is he trying to force me to abdicate? Forcing an emperor to abdicate was a capital offense punishable by extermination of 9 generations. Yet everyone present kept their eyes lowered and remained silent, allowing Qianfeng's coercion to go unchecked. Xia Ze was furious, his eyes bloodshot and teeth gritted as if ready to burst with rage. "So you all think the same?" he asked in a cold, piercing voice. No one answered. Even Prime Minister Chao remained silent. Pretending not to hear this was tacit agreement. Damn it! I, the mighty emperor of Great Shu, am being pushed by a bunch of old bastards to the point of begging for mercy. That old bastard Qianfeng's actions today were definitely instigated by Su Yong behind the scenes. The goal is just to suppress and warn him a bit. Otherwise, if they really wanted to force him to abdicate, troops would have already stormed in. Moreover, with Prime Minister Chao around, even if Su Yong wanted him to abdicate, that old fox Chao wouldn't agree. Xia Ze thought to himself, a flash of ruthless, murderous intent in his eyes. He felt his blood pounding madly at his temples, his head as if something was about to burst through. They still think he's the same weakling as before. He has troops under his command now. Today, he would make an example of someone to show these old bastards that Xia Ze is not to be trifled with. Finally, with eyes wide in fury, he roared almost hysterically. "Guards! Qianfeng of the Court of Imperial Sacrifices has committed the crime of insubordination, which is tantamount to deceiving the emperor. His crime deserves death. Strip him of all official titles, throw him into the imperial prison, and await sentencing." Wang Gui, the director of the seals, Chen Huai, the Marquis of Pingxiang, and others arrived late to the morning court, disrespecting the law and defying the nation's majesty. They shall also be thrown into the imperial prison. Outside the great hall, Zhang Long, a general under Tang Lai, led several hundred imperial guard soldiers in a mighty charge inside. Seeing this, Qianfeng showed no fear whatsoever and even began to threaten Zhang Long. "You, a mere 7th rank imperial guard officer, dare to lay a hand on me?" But he threatened the wrong person. Zhang Long, a commoner by birth, is loyal only to the emperor of Great Shu. How could he be afraid of a mere official from the court of imperial sacrifices? Swish! The long blade was drawn from its sheath. Qianfeng of the court of imperial sacrifices never expected that this brute Zhang Long would dare to strike his old face with the flat of the blade. A searing pain accompanied by endless humiliation. Nearly 70 years old, he was slapped in the face before all the court officials. He instantly flew into a rage and wanted to retaliate by striking Zhang Long. It is because of treacherous ministers like you in the court that the people are driven to misery. You shameless corrupt official, not only that, but you dare to force His Majesty to abdicate in public. Today, Zhang Long will slay you, old scoundrel, right here. With that, Zhang Long, furious beyond control, actually swung his blade down. The blade flashed with a chilling gleam, murderous aura pressing forward. Qianfeng was terrified. At this moment, regret flooded him. His face turned pale, panic-stricken, as he loudly begged for mercy. "General Zhang, please show mercy." With a thud, the blade drew blood, and the head rolled to the ground. The entire hall was stunned, dead silent. How dare Zhang Long kill someone right in front of the throne? With a clang, Zhang Long dropped his long sword, knelt to the ground, and said in a deep voice, "Your subordinate is guilty and willingly accepts His Majesty's punishment." Xia Ze was also quite surprised this guy was really bold. But at this moment, he felt relieved and laughed heartily. A treacherous minister like this who deceives his sovereign, General Zhang. You killed him well. What crime is there? General Zhang, please rise quickly. Thank you for your mercy, Your Majesty. After kowtowing in heartfelt gratitude, Zhang Long had barely stood up when the eunuch faction members launched their attack on him. How dare you, Zhang Long? You murdered a high-ranking court official. How could you be innocent? Your Majesty, you are confused. Your Majesty's action chills the hearts of all officials. Zhang Long must be severely punished, thrown into the imperial prison and await execution. Guards, arrest Zhang Long at once. Just as the crowd was seething with indignation and all were pointing accusations, Xia Ze, eyes blazing with fury, stormed down from the dragon throne. He snatched up the bloody blade that had just killed Qianfeng from the ground. He pointed the blade at the official who had been shouting the most fiercely. With bloodshot eyes, he roared, "Shut your mouth. If you say even half a word more, I will have you executed right here in the Golden Throne Hall today." Seeing Xia Ze's livid face, his overwhelming fury, his fierce aura and murderous intent, that official was terrified and immediately shut his mouth. Imperial guards, hear my command. Anyone on this court who dares to speak for the traitor Qianfeng will be executed on the spot. I want to see if blood will flow in this court today. With a loud shout from Xia Ze, several hundred Imperial Guard soldiers, led by Zhang Long, simultaneously drew their blades and aimed them at the civil and military officials. Now, faced with the point of a blade, those officials instantly became docile. After all, by now everyone could see that Xia Ze, driven insane with rage, was recklessly slaughtering ministers. It was not worth losing one's life in vain by resisting a tyrannical despot. Suddenly, the chaotic court fell silent. A bunch of cowardly dogs, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Xia Ze snorted contemptuously, then tossed aside his bloodied blade and strode out with big steps. The officials watched Xia Ze's retreating figure, all wearing sneers on their faces. The originally weak and incompetent emperor, after having died once, had instead become a wrathful tyrant. In essence, still incompetent. It's a pity that Qianfeng, despite his advanced age, died right in the Golden Throne Hall. Prime Minister Chao smiled faintly, with a meaningful expression. Only after stepping out of Golden Throne Hall did Xia Ze gradually calm down. Though his previous actions were rash, they also tarnished his reputation. But so what? After today, whether members of the eunuch faction or the Chancellor's faction dare to pressure him in court, they should weigh their own lives. Not afraid of death. Fine. The Imperial Guard's long blades will send you straight to the Western Paradise. A tyrant? Heh. He will become a tyrant even more feared than Qin Shi Huang. Sigh. In the end, having troops gives you a stronger voice. The secret guard Xia Ze suddenly thought of this spy agency. During the reign of the founding emperor, the first generation of the secret guard spread across all provinces, wielding immense power. In the Great Chu realm, aside from the founding emperor, no official could check them. It was the secret guard's heyday, but unfortunately by this generation, because the original body favored Su Yong, who was allowed to establish another spy agency, the Eastern Depot. The secret guard's actions were suppressed by the Eastern Depot at every turn. From then on, the secret guard completely declined. Xia Ze sighed with emotion for a moment. If he had the secret guard under his command, the court ministers would never dare to show such disrespect toward the sovereign as they did today. Must reactivate the secret guard. With this thought, he immediately said, Zhang Long, secretly summon Yuan Gang, the commander of the secret guard, to see me. Yes, Your Majesty. Yuan Gang, the current commander of the secret guard. He looked dejected, haggard, and exuded an air of decadence. It seemed that being sidelined by Xia Ze had hit him hard. Yuan Gang, I heard that as the supreme commander of the secret guard, you still have to respectfully address Su Yong as Lord Factory Commander. Yuan Gang flushed crimson upon hearing Xia Ze's words. Thinking about how he, a high-ranking official of the third rank as commander of the secret guard, had to bow and scrape to a eunuch. He truly disgraced all previous commanders of the secret guard. He was instantly filled with shame. He wished he could find a hole to crawl into and hide. But since His Majesty favored Su Yong, Yuan Gang had no choice but to look dejected and disheartened. Then he cautiously asked, Your Majesty, summoning me to the palace, what business do you have? Despite being the commander of the secret guard, Yuan Gang, you can't even figure out why I summoned you today. Xia Ze said impatiently, a hint of disappointment in his tone. He wanted a quick-witted person who could discern the emperor's intent. If you can't figure it out, I can't be bothered to waste more words here. Yuan Gang was taken aback at first, then suddenly startled. The truth was that Xia Ze had favored Su Yong too much over the years. He simply hadn't thought deeper. Now, does Your Majesty intend to reinstate the secret guard? Yuan Gang's breath caught as he cautiously probed. I ask you, can you be sure of taking down the Eastern Depot? Xia Ze fixed a sharp gaze on Yuan Gang, his imperial might pouring out unabated. At that moment, Yuan Gang's face changed drastically, awed by Xia Ze's imposing demeanor. This was no longer a mediocre, powerless clay emperor, but clearly an ambitious king of beasts revealing its sharp fangs. Boom! Yuan Gang felt as if he had been injected with adrenaline. His passion reignited. His breathing quickened, his expression fervent, and he immediately knelt before Xia Ze, trembling with excitement and boiling with enthusiasm, saying, "I am willing to serve as your Majesty's agent, to take down the Eastern Depot." Xia Ze showed a satisfied smile. To express closeness, he patted Yuan Gang on the shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Yuan Gang, as long as you remain loyal to me, I will surely restore the glory of your secret guard from the time of the founding emperor." He urgently needed a force that could act for him in the shadows to strengthen his imperial rule. Yuan Gang's eyes lit up, his fighting spirit soaring, no trace of his former dejection, and he declared resolutely, "I am willing to go through fire and water for your majesty, no matter the cost." Xia Ze added a few more words of encouragement to Yuan Gang, and only then did a heavy stone feel lifted from his heart. He turned and left, heading to the imperial treasury. If the Ministry of Revenue wouldn't give him money, he would take it from the emperor's own treasury to buy jewelry. Not for Consort Su, of course. Treated him with sincerity. It was only right that he send her a small gift to express his love. Yuan Gang stared fixedly at Xia Ze's retreating figure, his mind in turmoil. Recalling the humiliations he had endured in recent years in dealing with the eunuch dogs, he couldn't help but sob. The bitter days were finally coming to an end. His fists clenched tightly, veins bulging and popping out one by one. As a subject, one must be utterly loyal and serve the country. Your Majesty, your servant will never let down your expectations. Eunuch dogs of the Eastern Depot, wait for your doom. The inner treasury. When Xia Ze opened the door, he was stunned to see it completely empty. Veins on the back of his hand twitched and bulged like venomous snakes, seething with extraordinary rage. Where did all the money in my inner treasury go? The young eunuch who opened the door was so frightened that he immediately knelt on the ground, trembling in fear, and said, "Your Majesty, all that money was taken and used by Lord Quan." "Which Lord Quan?" "Order him to come see me at once." After raging, Xia Ze finally remembered who Lord Quan was. Quan Xing, the head of the Taoist registry office. In his early years, this fellow was just a street medicine peddler. Later, he gained the late emperor's favor by providing him with virility pills, which led to his appointment as the chief overseer of Taoist affairs. After the late emperor's death, he ingratiated himself with both the eunuch faction and continued to refine virility pills for Xia Ze's predecessor, playing both sides to his advantage. But his good days were numbered. Soon, Quan Xing arrived at the inner treasury. As soon as he saw Xia Ze, he knelt on the ground and shouted, "Long live the emperor!" Xia Ze glared at him and demanded loudly, "What is the meaning of this? You need to explain yourself to me." Quan Xing replied calmly and unhurriedly, "Your Majesty, the materials for alchemy are costly, and combined with frequent failed attempts, the expenses naturally add up." Xia Ze's face darkened as he said incredulously, "You've managed to drain an entire treasury with your alchemy?" Quan Xing, still wearing an innocent expression, said, "Your Majesty, during the late emperor's time, the cost of refining the elixir of immortality was exorbitant. It was unavoidable. However, Your Majesty, I am on the verge of successfully refining that elixir of immortality. But I'm still short of funds. I implore Your Majesty to allocate more money for the alchemy." Xia Ze clenched his teeth, his rage blazing. Spending all of his imperial petty cash was one thing, and even using the promise of immortality pills to swindle him out of money. Did he really take him for the late emperor in his old age? This morning, full of pent-up fury, Xia Ze, still seething and needing to vent, swung his fist and smashed it right into him. The blows thudded loudly, leaving Quan Xing seeing stars and dazed, his nose bridge broken by a punch, blood spurting everywhere, a wretched sight. "You you steal my money and still dare to deceive me? You dog! I'll beat you to death today." Thump, thump, thump. Xia Ze's teeth ground together, veins bulging on his face. He laid into Quan Xing right then and there, punching and kicking him as if trying to kill him. Quan Xing never expected Xia Ze to be so furious. He could only cover his head and beg for mercy. "Your Majesty, spare my life. Your Majesty, spare my life." After a fierce beating, Xia Ze pulled a long face and said coldly, "Spare your mother's life? Zhang Long, drag him down and throw him into the imperial dungeon. And while you're at it, confiscate his entire household. I want to see just how much of my money this bastard has embezzled." At the capital's gate, Yangqing, dressed in plain clothes, looked desolate as he prepared to leave this place. Just then, several people suddenly rode up on horseback, led by none other than Yuan Gang. "Lord Yang, please stay." Yangqing looked over with a puzzled expression. "I have come on His Majesty's orders to find you. This is a secret decree from His Majesty for you." Yuan Gang took out a sealed letter and handed it to Yangqing. After reading it, Yangqing's entire demeanor shed its dejection, and he was filled with vigor, tears streaming down his face as he sobbed. "So His Majesty has been lying low all along, secretly preparing to eradicate the treacherous officials. I have misunderstood His Majesty." After settling the matter with Quan Xing, Xia Ze went to the Qingyu Palace of Consort Dong. Seeing that Xia Ze was somewhat angry, Consort Dong asked gently with concern, "Did Your Majesty encounter something troubling at the morning court?" "Just a bunch of old fogies, not worth getting into a fight with them. I never expected that bastard Quan Xing would clean out my entire private treasury. It made me so furious I had his family raided. For an emperor to have his personal coffers embezzled clean is too embarrassing to mention outside." Consort Dong gently massaged Xia Ze's shoulders and said softly, "Your Majesty, please don't get upset over such a small matter. I still have 1,000,000 taels of dowry that can be added to Your Majesty's private treasury. Oh, and there are over a dozen shops in the capital with good profits. I'll give those to you as well. From now on, if you need money, just tell me." Xia Ze was taken aback. He hadn't expected Consort Dong to go this far for him. Truly sincere feelings, he was deeply moved. But being supported by a little rich woman actually felt pretty good. Yet he was the emperor. How could he live off a woman? "I am the sovereign of a nation. How can I use your dowry money, Mir? Once Quan Xing's house is confiscated, there should be plenty of funds available. When that time comes, I'll buy you some little trinkets, Mir." With that, his heart stirred, and he pulled the soft, delicate Consort Dong into his arms. Consort Dong exclaimed softly, her face flushing red, then her delicate, boneless hand suddenly pressed downward. But it was too late. Xia Ze had already succeeded, letting out a sudden wicked chuckle. This made Consort Dong's face burn as if she were in a steamer. Her chest heaved, her breath like orchid, slowly losing strength. She whispered coquettishly, "Your Majesty, it's still daytime. We can't. I am the emperor. I can do whatever I want. Why can't I? Mir, was I impressive last night?" Xia Ze breathed a turbid sigh near Consort Dong's ear, dampening her earlobe. Even Consort Dong's neck turned red. She instinctively shrank back and murmured coquettishly in a small voice, "Your Majesty is impressive." Just as Xia Ze was about to explain the intricacies to Consort Dong, Wei Yin's untimely voice sounded quietly from outside again. "Your Majesty, Consort Su is waiting outside. She says she has brought medicine for you." "Medicine again? Still trying to harm me, huh?" Not seeing her, Xia replied impatiently, "Your Majesty, Sister Su has kindly brought medicine over. You really should see her." Consort Dong didn't want Xia Ze's relationship with Consort Su to become too strained. Xia Ze reached out and gently tapped Consort Dong's delicate nose, saying with a smile, "My Mir is not only beautiful, but also kind-hearted. Then I'll listen to me, and see her." Consort Dong clearly felt the joy of being valued by Xia Ze, and couldn't he help but break into a smile, like a flower glistening with morning dew, exquisite and infinitely lovely. Xia Ze couldn't resist. He leaned down and kissed her passionately. By the time the stunningly beautiful Consort Su entered holding a bowl of medicinal soup, Xia Ze had already straightened his clothes. Consort Su walked in gracefully with her hair flowing loosely over her shoulders, draped in a light gauze that faintly revealed her fair skin, showcasing her alluring figure. Her pretty face was like a peach blossom pale with a rosy blush, dazzling and beautiful, and her eyes were full of flirtatious smiles. Although Consort Su had restrained herself, she still couldn't hide the alluring charm that radiated from her very bones. She was nothing less than an addictive poison for men. Xia Ze felt the anger he had barely calmed down about to surge again, so he quickly took a sip of tea to hide his embarrassment. But Consort Su still caught Xia Ze's previous lecherous expression, and her heart rejoiced. Even though His Majesty's temperament had changed now, his infatuation with her beauty remained the same as ever. As long as she used a little charm, His Majesty would soon be as captivated by her as before, doing whatever she said. But the next moment, Xia Ze's words left her dumbfounded. There's still something I need to discuss in depth with Consort Dong. Consort Su, just leave the medicine and go. Hearing this, a cold glint flashed in Consort Su's eyes. What a Consort Dong, I've underestimated her all along. Quietly earning His Majesty's favor, a clever move indeed. At this point, making a fuss would only annoy Xia Ze. Consort Su had no choice but to put down the medicine and leave. But before leaving, she stuck out her tongue to lick her lips and said seductively, "Your Majesty, I have prepared a little surprise in the Fengyi Palace, waiting for you to come." Ahem. Xia Ze couldn't help but feel restless and indicated that he understood. Finally, after Consort Su left, Xia Ze could no longer restrain himself and was ready to have a deep discussion about life with Consort Dong. Unexpectedly, the voice of Wei and came from outside again. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager summons you." Wei said hastily, looking a bit aggrieved. The Empress Dowager was now the true master of the harem. After a moment of hesitation, Xia Ze had no choice but to suppress his dragon fire and to get up to leave. In the Xineng Palace, Xia Ze finally met his nominal mother, the reigning Empress Dowager. Unexpectedly, she was a stunning beauty. Although the Empress Dowager was over 40, she was naturally beautiful and had lived a life of luxury for many years. She remained as lovely as a flower, with still lingering charm. Dressed in bright red luxurious robes, she exuded an air of elegant dignity. She slowly walked out from the rear hall. Her mature and enchanting figure was like a goddess stepping out of a painting, lofty and unattainable, yet stirring the soul. Xia Zexin couldn't help but tremble and quickly said respectfully, "Your son greets Mother Empress." This Empress Dowager, he had no blood relation with him. Back then, the late emperor took red pills seeking immortality but died halfway and had not appointed a crown prince. Empress Dowager, heeding Su Yong's persuasion, summoned the original owner of this body to the palace overnight and hastily enthroned him. "Your Majesty, how has your health been recovering these past few days?" Empress Dowager, his voice was soft, but it felt like a cat scratching at his heart, inexplicably making Xia Ze's heart itch. Replying to Mother Empress, "I've mostly recovered. Thank you for your concern. I heard that yesterday Your Majesty went to the Ministry of Justice prison and dismissed Minister of Justice Gu Chun." Xia Ze's heart tightened. This was the real reason Empress Dowager, he had called him over. You see, Su Yong had gained Empress Dowager his complete trust, and his allies filled the court. Thus he could completely control the government and do as he pleased. That old rascal Gu Chun falsely accused Tang Lai of plotting against me. It concerns my very life. Yet Gu Chun didn't investigate properly. Keeping such a waste only wastes the nation's grain. Xia Ze spoke unhurriedly. Empress Dowager, he slightly opened her phoenix eyes and glanced at Xia Ze with some surprise. "Your Majesty's speech is much clearer than before, and your attitude seems quite a bit more assertive. One fall into the water has changed your temper a bit. The left Vice Minister of the Ministry of Justice, Ning Su, is quite capable. How about appointing him as the Minister of Justice? What does Your Majesty think?" Xia Ze hesitated briefly, then immediately replied, "I'll follow Mother Empress's arrangement." Empress Dowager, he then revealed a faint smile. Changing a bit of temper is fine as long as he remains as obedient as before, there's no problem. After leaving Xineng Palace, Xia Ze changed his amiable expression, his look suddenly becoming much sharper. Weian, the harem shall not interfere in politics. This rule was set by the founding emperor. How has it changed now? Weian was startled upon hearing this. He understood the implication of Xia Ze's words. It was dissatisfaction with Empress Dowager he. After hesitating for a moment, seeing that no one was around, he finally lowered his voice and said, "Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager is after all the empress of the late emperor and holds great prestige in the court. Moreover, the Empress Dowager's elder brother, He Jin, is the cavalry general of the 3 capital camps. With deep-rooted foundations, Your Majesty must not confront him head-on for now. The 3 camps bear the responsibility of protecting the capital within and preparing for campaigns without. But now they have instead become a weapon that even Xia Ze, the emperor, fears. A bitter irony indeed." After a brief silence, he said calmly, "Weian, tell Yuan Gang to investigate Ning Su's background for me. I don't believe a eunuch loyalist is clean. He wants to be the Minister of Justice? Not in this lifetime. Wei nodded, then said softly, "Your Majesty, the capital's foremost miracle doctor, Dr. Shui, summoned by Minister Yuan, has arrived. He has been secretly brought into the Qianxin Palace for now, unnoticed by anyone." Xia Ze's spirits lifted, and his gaze sharpened as he said, "Have Dr. Shui thoroughly examined for me whether there is anything wrong with the medicine sent by Consort Su." Soon, an old man in hemp cloth appeared before Xia Ze. He had white hair and a rosy complexion, but was full of vitality. Cupping his hands, he said, "Your Majesty, there is a problem with this medicinal broth. It contains a small amount of Thunder God Vine from Jiangnan." Thunder God Vine? Xia Ze's gaze turned cold as he questioned. Dr. Shui immediately explained, "Your Majesty, this is a slow-acting poison. Those who consume it will first experience dizziness, palpitations, and fatigue, and then grow increasingly weak until death." Xia Ze clenched his fist. His eyes cold, he looked at Dr. Shui and said in a heavy tone, "Dr. Shui, do you know what you're saying? If there is even a hint of falsehood, don't blame me for executing your entire clan." Dr. Shui's face changed, and he was greatly alarmed. He quickly said, "Your Majesty, I am willing to stake the lives of over 30 members of the Shui family to guarantee that this broth is indeed poisonous. Long-term consumption will surely lead to death. A fine surely lead to death indeed." Xia Ze's resentment grew in his chest. The hatred was unbearable. So the medicine really was problematic. In his memory, Su Yong cared most about face, so even if he wanted to usurp power, he would not leave any evidence. That's why he used poison. Now, Su Yong still doesn't know that he has detected the problem with the medicine. So for the time being, Su Yong won't use other methods to harm him. Before that happens, it's his prime opportunity to seize power. Which imperial physician prepared the medicinal soup for me? Weiyan, standing nearby, gritted his teeth and replied with anger, "Your Majesty, it was Physician Wang of the Imperial Medical Academy." Xia Ze's eyes instantly widened, his brows shooting up and veins bulging on his face, radiating a deep killing intent. "Have Tang Lai arrest him and investigate thoroughly. To dare poison me, I'll have his entire family executed for this." "Yes, Your Majesty." Weiyan will go at once to deliver the order to Tang Lai. "Divine Dr. Shui, the Imperial Medical Academy is yours from now on." Xia Ze's words left Divine Dr. Shui dumbfounded. What does he mean? Is he asking me to become an official? But for a physician at the Imperial Medical Academy to dare poison the Emperor, the court is too dangerous. I can't become an official. "Your Majesty, I am unworthy of managing the Imperial Medical Academy. Please withdraw your command." Xia Ze couldn't be bothered to argue with Divine Dr. Shui and said flatly, "Think carefully about the 30-plus lives in your household before you refuse, Dr. Shui. I've heard your youngest grandson is barely a month old." A bitter look crossed Dr. Shui's face. After a moment of silence, he knelt and declared loudly, "Your servant thanks Your Majesty for your boundless grace. This emperor threatens his entire family at the slightest disagreement. He's making things too hard." Xia Ze narrowed his eyes, a cold glint flashing as his sharpness shone through. "From now on, I entrust my life to you, Dr. Shui. I trust you will do your job well. Don't follow the example of those useless physicians in the Imperial Hospital who ended up with their entire families executed." Dr. Shui's entire body trembled. Terrified, the corner of his mouth twitched violently. Stop hitting me. I'll confess. It was the eunuch scribe, Su Dong, who threatened my family's lives and forced me to poison His Majesty. General Tang, please spare me." Imperial Physician Wang, beaten black and blue and advanced in years, could no longer endure the torture and could only confess, his voice weak and breathless. At that moment, Tang Lai burned with fury. What a eunuch, daring to poison His Majesty. He immediately returned to the palace to report this to Xia Ze. "Arrest him. Whether Su Dong is Su Yong's adopted son or not, since he dared to do such a thing. Even if the Jade Emperor himself came, he couldn't save him." Xia Ze pressed his lips tightly and clenched his fists, burning with rage. But the news later transmitted by Tang Lai made him sneer. Royal physician Wang had just confessed when Su Dong hanged himself. That dog eunuch has skillful methods. Tang Lai sensed the deeper meaning in Xia Ze's words. He was directly pointing at Su Yong. "Your Majesty, this is my dereliction of duty. I will definitely give your majesty a satisfactory account of this matter. An uncontrollable fury flashed in Xia Ze's eyes, and his teeth ground. Audibly, "It's not your fault, General Tang. Not only is the eunuch faction powerful and has many informants in the Imperial Medical Institute, but even the entire palace is full of his minions. Eliminating the eunuchs is a pressing matter," Tang Lai said in a resolute voice. "As long as your majesty gives the command, I will lead the Imperial Guard and the Left Guard to eliminate the eunuchs for your majesty. Your majesty has finally realized that Su Yong, that treacherous villain, is manipulating power and harming the state. This is a good sign. As expected of my loyal minister." Xia Ze showed a faint smile on his face. Just then, Wei Yan walked in from outside and said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, Su Yong has arrived and is kneeling outside, requesting punishment." Xia Ze said impatiently, "Tell him to get lost. Dock his salary for 5 years and say I don't want to see him." Wei Yan said with some concern, "Your Majesty, if you break ties with Su Yong now, the situation will be unfavorable for you." Xia Ze took a sip of tea and said calmly, "If I truly dismissed him from his post as the director of the Directorate of Ceremonial, that would be breaking ties. Cutting his salary for 5 years is only a minor punishment, not painful at all. He knows that I am merely angry about this matter, but haven't truly blamed him." After a pause, he added another sentence. "Send him a message. Tell him to continue investigating this matter. If he can't get to the bottom of it, don't come see me. This should be enough to appease him for now. Your Majesty is wise." Wei Yan flattered, and at the same time, he took out a ledger and handed it to Xia Ze, saying, "Your Majesty, this is the wealth obtained from confiscating the Quan family's property. Please take a look. Gold, over 10,800 taels silver, over 607,700 taels gold vessels, over 5,710 taels gold jewelry, over 900 taels." Xia Ze was furious. His hands clenched tightly, trembling slightly, and his chest heaved violently as he roared. The current annual revenue of the National Treasury is only 4 million taels of silver. He, a mere chief of the Daoist registry, actually embezzled 1/3 of the National Treasury's income. Convey my decree. Immediately execute Quan Xing and exile his entire family to the military. Furthermore, hang the corpses of him and Su Dong at the palace gate for 3 days to expose them. I will use these 2 corpses to warn all under heaven." The next day, at the morning court, Wei Yan stood on the high platform and announced, "If there are matters to report, report them. If not, the court is dismissed." At that moment, a member of the eunuch faction stepped forward and proposed, "Your subject submits a memorial. The position of Minister of Justice should not remain vacant for too long. I observe that Longzhong Su of the Ministry of Justice has talent and is worthy of the great responsibility of Minister of Justice." Xia Ze sat on the dragon throne, a faint, almost imperceptible smile curling at the corner of his mouth, orchestrating the situation as he said calmly, "Then let Ning Su take the position." The eunuch faction was overjoyed as the power of the Ministry of Justice had returned to their hands. That Ning Su, who had leaped to become Minister of Justice with immense power, also looked down on Xia Ze, the worthless emperor. But now he stepped forward, overjoyed and kowtowed in gratitude. It wasn't in vain that he had bribed the 9,000-year-old with 100,000 taels of silver. From now on, with his fat position in the Ministry of Justice, he would squeeze every last tael back out. Just then, a young official stepped forward and said loudly, "I object." Xia Ze lifted his eyes to glance at the young official, recognizing him as Fei Yan, a supervising secretary of the Ministry of War. Despite his low rank, a mere junior 7th grade, he held great power and could impeach any official. A faint smile curled at the corners of Xia Ze's lips as he feigned displeasure and said, "Fei Yan, what objection do you have to my decision?" Fei Yan spoke with fervor, his voice loud and clear. "I wish to impeach Ning Su, the director of the Ministry of Justice. 4 years ago, his father passed away, yet he did not resign from office to return to his ancestral home for mourning, and still pretended nothing had happened while serving in the capital. This is the utmost filial impiety and a blatant disregard for the laws of the state. How can such a disloyal and unfilial man be worthy of being Minister of Justice?" Ning Su's face turned pale with shock on the spot. At that time, he had just become a director of the Ministry of Justice. How could he resign to observe 3 years of mourning for his father? He had concealed this matter very well. How did Fei Yin find out? This is bad. Upon hearing this, Xia Ze's face immediately darkened, and he looked sharply at the panicked Ning Su, demanding loudly, Ning Su, is what Fei Yin said true? This. Your servant. Ning Su was also flustered. Since this matter had been exposed, how could he still conceal it? A casual investigation in his hometown would uncover it. At that point, it would truly be the crime of deceiving the emperor. The eunuch clique members were all dumbfounded. This fellow's father died, and he didn't even tell them. Now that someone has caught him by a weak spot, what could be done? Seeing Ning Su's reaction, Xia Ze's tiger-like eyes widened with boundless fury, and he roared uncontrollably. Very well, Ning Su. Your father has passed away, yet you refuse to return from mourning. What use does the emperor have for a man like you? Come, strip Ning Su of all his official positions and banish him back to his ancestral home. For the rest of your life, you will observe mourning for your father as compensation. This is utterly destroying Ning Su's lifelong hope of an official career cruel beyond measure. Ning Su's face turned deathly pale, and he was completely stunned. It's just that I didn't return in time to observe mourning, you dog emperor, and you actually stripped me of my position? Enraged and humiliated, he wanted to curse Xia Ze right there in court. But then he remembered the Imperial Guard soldiers at the door, watching menacingly. Afraid of death, in a fury, he could only swallow his anger. This matter needs to be discussed with the 9,000 years. From the crowd, Fei Yin spoke loudly again. Your Majesty, I propose that the former left vice-censor-in-chief and provincial governor Ma Sheng be appointed as Minister of Justice. Ma Sheng has a fiery temperament and is upright and courageous. He served as the general-in-chief of the Datong military, managed the Liaodong mutiny, killed Walla cavalry, and even scolded the late emperor for neglecting court affairs, only to be dismissed and left idle at home. Fei Yin actually proposed such an old, stubborn man as Minister of Justice. They absolutely will not allow it. Ma Sheng is advanced in years and likely cannot take over the Ministry of Justice. Fei Yin retorted, Lord Ma is only 67. Full of energy, he can handle the Ministry of Justice himself. Ma Sheng is arrogant by nature and once showed disrespect to the previous emperor. Fei Yin stepped forward, unwilling to back down, and retorted tit for tat. Since when did speaking out for justice become arrogance? Supervising the monarch and governing the country is the duty of an imperial censor. Lord Ma only did what he should do. How can that be considered disrespect to the previous emperor? If one lets successive emperors do as they please without oversight, that is dereliction of duty. A trace of satisfied smile flashed imperceptibly at the corner of Xia Ze's mouth, but he pretended to be very impatient and said, What's there to argue about? Just let this whatever Ma Sheng be the Minister of Justice. After saying that, he pretended to look displeased and walked out of the Golden Throne Hall. The officials were in an uproar, each showing a troubled expression, feeling very bad. Except for Fei Yin, who thought that he had repeatedly submitted memorials pointing out the malpractices of the previous court, but was ignored, inevitably feeling somewhat disheartened. But when Xia Ze sent Yuan Gang to find him, and he learned that he was being attacked in the court for proposing that Ma Sheng be appointed as the Minister of Justice, he was greatly shocked and readily accepted it. His Majesty has finally awakened to the need to purge the court. Inside a room, Su Yong was having a talk with a young eunuch. That young eunuch was named Su Ping, the most trusted adopted son of Su Yong, the leader of the 10 Sons, and also the seal-holding eunuch of the Imperial Horse Administration. Besides tending to horses, the Imperial Horse Administration also commanded an Imperial Guard of over 5,000 soldiers, making it a formidable force. The Imperial Guards of the Great Shu Palace were divided into 3 branches: the Imperial Guard Left Army, the Imperial Guard Right Army, and the 4 Guard Armies of the Imperial Horse Administration. The purpose was to prevent any treacherous general from seizing the entire palace, leaving room for maneuvering if such a situation arose. Su Yong sighed and said, His Majesty has grown suspicious. Tracing the clues, he caught Donger. I wonder which link went wrong. Su Ping leaned close to Su Yong's ear and whispered on. It is not the right time to act now. Godfather, I have a plan that can temporarily earn His Majesty's trust." Meanwhile, as soon as Xia Ze returned to the Qianqing Palace, Wei Yan reported that Su Yuan, the chief eunuch of the Inner Palace Directorate, had arrived. Another one of Su Yong's adopted sons, one of the 10 children. All 12 directorates of the Imperial Palace were filled with Su Yong's adopted descendants, totaling 600 or 700 people. As soon as Su Yuan entered, he knelt directly on the ground and said respectfully, "Your Majesty, this servant has finally captured a tiger, as you commanded. That tiger is now in the Leopard House. Would Your Majesty like to go and see it?" Tiger? Leopard House? Xia Ze remembered. To curry favor with the original owner, Su Yong had spent a huge sum to build a pleasure ground called the Leopard House. The Leopard House housed many animals, and the original owner liked to watch beast fights when he had nothing to do. And the original owner's devotion to debauchery and pleasure was half Su Yuan's fault. It was he who led the original owner astray, spending every day frolicking in the Leopard House. Now this scoundrel still wants to lead him astray. This was the perfect chance to go to the Leopard House and teach Su Yuan a lesson. Let's go take a look. Wei Yan wanted to speak, but hesitated. His Majesty had just resolved to revive the court's authority. He couldn't possibly head to the Leopard House for pleasure again. But as a servant, he couldn't control His Majesty's actions and could only follow. In a magnificent and splendid palace, Xia Ze saw a massive striped tiger, exuding the fierce aura of the king of the mountain. This was many times fiercer than the ornamental tigers seen in zoos. Su Yuan stepped forward obsequiously and said, "Your Majesty, with your divine power to tame dragons and tigers, why not take this opportunity to subdue this beast today? Go to hell with your tame dragons and tigers. Do you take him for Wusong? Either you think he's an idiot, or you're the idiot yourself." When Su Yuan said such words, Xia Ze didn't hold back at all and said with a grin, "You go up and subdue this tiger for me, and I'll reward you handsomely, promote you 3 ranks, and make you the Grand Director of the Directorate of Ceremonial. How about that?" Su Yuan was stunned and repeatedly waved his hands, saying, "Your Majesty, don't joke. Your servant with these thin arms and legs. How could I possibly subdue a fierce tiger?" Xia Ze's face darkened, his eyes fixedly staring at Su Yuan like a furious tiger about to pounce. And he said coldly, "Do you think I am joking with you?" Su Yuan felt that the Xia Ze before him seemed different from before, much more forceful and domineering than in the past. With a mournful face, he wanted to say a few more words, but heard Xia Ze's indifferent yet unquestionable voice. "Now go up there right now, or you'll be this tiger's lunch today." This is really like shooting oneself in the foot. This time Su Yuan was really about to cry. Under these circumstances, whether he went up or not, he would be this tiger's lunch anyway. "Guards, bring a knife. Chop Su Yuan into pieces and feed him to the tiger." Xia Ze sneered and shouted loudly, "Your servant will go right away." Su Yuan's Jadith. He was scared and could only move tremblingly towards the tiger's direction. A large open space ahead, without any railings or obstacles, a ferocious tiger right in the middle, yet no fear of it charging out and hurting anyone, quite the bold mindset. At that moment, Su Yuan hesitated briefly, then suddenly picked up a handful of pebbles from the ground and threw them at the wary tiger. The enraged tiger let out a sudden roar and charged straight at him. He immediately turned and ran. Xia Ze had been watching the show, but he never expected the tiger with bloodshot eyes to bypass Su Yuan in a flash and charge straight at him. Suddenly, he found himself face to face with the beast. Damn it, Xia Ze couldn't help blurting out a curse as he was about to flee. Holy shit, that starving tiger could run damn fast. In the blink of an eye, it was almost right in front of him. Son of a bitch, I haven't even been emperor for 2 days, and I'm about to die again? Protect the emperor. At the critical moment, Wei Yan was reliable. He shouted loudly and, without a trace of fear, stepped in front of Xia Ze. "This little eunuch is truly loyal to me." Xia Ze felt deeply touched inside. "Wei Yan, you cannot die." Bang! A heavy sound rang out in front, accompanied by the huge roar of a tiger. This young eunuch is so fierce. He can fight a tiger with bare hands? Xia Ze just looked up and saw a burly guard jumping out and fighting the tiger with his bare hands. Looking at that guard's fierce punches, he seems to have astonishing arm strength. After just a few punches, the tiger was frightened and kept backing away. It was rather comical. and that guard seemed to have gotten addicted to fighting. He chased the tiger and beat it violently. In the end, he actually beat the tiger to death. Extraordinary bravery. Xia Ze felt the desire to cherish talent. Having such a valiant and strong man by his side would ensure his safety in the future. "What is your name?" That guard scratched his head foolishly and said, "I'm Hu Che." Xia Ze was about to praise him when he saw Su Yuan come running back, scolding Hu Che fiercely and harshly. "You blind dog! How dare you kill His Majesty's fierce tiger? Come, drag Hu Che away and hack him to death." Slap! Xia Ze's eyes widened instantly, his eyebrows stood up one by one, and veins bulged on his face. A heavy slap landed on Su Yuan's face, shattering several of his teeth. His mouth was full of blood and foam, looking utterly miserable. In everyone's memory, they had never seen that coward Xia Ze dare to hit someone. Moreover, he was Su Yuan's godson. Even if the coward didn't respect the monk, he should respect the Buddha. How dare he hit him? "Your Majesty, your damn Majesty. You damn dog slave, you ran so fast. I was almost killed by this tiger. What use do I have for a waist like you? Hu Che, cut down this dog slave for me." Xia Ze's voice rose from low to high, gradually turning into a roar. His face flushed red, then turned blue, and his neck swelled as if about to explode. He was clearly furious. Hu Che, obedient as he was, immediately drew a gleaming long blade from his waist. "Your Majesty." Su Yuan, with blood at the corner of his mouth, seeing Xia Ze was getting serious, was now completely panicked. And at this moment, he finally saw Su Yong approaching with his men. Suddenly filled with hope, he hurriedly ran towards Su Yong, shouting loudly, "Godfather, save me." Swish! Hu Che swung his blade. With his bare hands, he could take on a fierce tiger. One could well imagine the strength in his arms. With that single stroke, Su Yuan was instantly cleaved in two, his innards spilling out. Blood splattered 3 steps away, a scene of extreme gore. Having just arrived, Su Yong witnessed the scene, pausing only for a moment in silence. Then, acting as if he had seen nothing, he casually walked up to Xia Ze. "Your servant heard that reckless Su Yuan brought a fierce tiger for your Majesty to play with. Fearing for your Majesty's safety, I rushed here, but arrived too late to protect you. Please forgive my delay, your Majesty." Su Yong kept his head lowered, his attitude seemingly sincere, yet his expression was impossible to read. Xia Ze stared at Su Yong, who had his head lowered, taking a deep look. His godson died right in front of him, yet he remained unmoved. This damned eunuch is truly deep and calculating. Finally, he patted Su Yong on the shoulder and said with a smile, "As expected, Duke Su is loyal. You knew to come and rescue me. If it were someone else, they probably wouldn't care whether I live or die. You deserve a reward. I dare not ask for a reward. Originally, I deducted 5 years of your salary because I was furious. Let's just cancel that. This servant thanks your Majesty for your grace." Su Yong said very gratefully, though how sincere he was remained unknown. Xia Ze let out a cold laugh without changing his expression, then turned to Hu Che and said, "Hu Che, you saved me from the tiger's mouth. You have rendered great service. I appoint you as an imperial bodyguard with the right to carry a sword. From now on, you will always stay by my side." Originally, Hu Che was only a palace guard of the 8th rank. Now he was promoted directly to a 4th rank imperial bodyguard. Instantly, the surrounding palace guards were extremely envious. "Thank you for your Majesty's favor." Hu Che, overjoyed, knelt directly on the ground. Born into a humble family, he finally had a chance to rise. After the tiger incident, Xia Ze had no further interest in staying at the Leopard House and returned to the Qinqing Palace. As for Su Yong, he stared at Xia Ze's retreating back and whispered almost imperceptibly, "Have you finally figured it out or not?" Soon after, Ma Sheng arrived at the imperial study. Xia Ze met the 67-year-old blunt little old man, short but wiry, exuding an unyielding spirit. "If your Majesty wants me to be Minister of Justice, I have only one request. From now on, do not meddle in the affairs of the Ministry of Justice." This little old man spoke quite bluntly, apparently still upset about His Majesty's outrageous behavior over the past few years. But Xia Ze knew that Ma Sheng was utterly loyal to Great Chu and a capable minister who had never been properly recognized. So he paid no heed to Ma Sheng's current attitude. Soon enough, This little old man would sincerely call him Your Majesty. Thus, he said with a smile, "Agreed. I approve of this. From now on, the Ministry of Justice is in Lord Ma's hands. I only wish for it to be clean, free of all that corruption and disorder. I know Lord Ma's abilities well, so I hope you won't disappoint me." Ma Sheng was startled. It seemed he hadn't expected Xia Ze to show him such respect, addressing him so politely as Master Ma and speaking so amiably. Amid his astonishment, he then heard Xia Ze's meaningful words and grew even more suspicious. Could it be that this young emperor is about to make a move against the eunuch clique? Never mind. Whatever the young emperor's original intent, he would take this opportunity to sweep away the deep-rooted ills of the court. Your minister will not let your majesty down. At noon, Xia Ze specifically asked Consort Dong to join him for lunch. During the meal, he gently picked up a piece of mung bean cake with his index finger and brought it to Consort Dong's lips. Tucking her hair behind her ear, Consort Dong opened her cherry-like mouth, and her hot breath brushed his fingertips, stirring a restless urge within him. But feeding a stunning beauty was quite enjoyable. Just as Xia Ze and Consort Dong were enjoying their lunch, Wan entered from outside. With a slightly worried look, he said, "Your Majesty, news has just arrived that Ma Sheng has taken office at the Ministry of Justice and summarily dismissed over a dozen officials. I fear his harsh methods may incite chaos in the ministry. Is this current mess at the Ministry of Justice not chaotic enough? Keeping a bunch of useless corrupt officials is worse than dismissing them all." Xia Ze picked up a cup of wine, took a small sip, and seemed unperturbed. "Wan, do not underestimate Lord Ma. He has been at court for over 40 years, with prestige and connections. Now that he raises his voice, countless heroes will flock to him." Xia Ze, perhaps pleased, laughed heartily. "Let's see how he revitalizes the Ministry of Justice for me." Originally, Xia Ze would hold court roughly once every 7 days. Now that there's a new master, he attends court every day, which has made the officials somewhat uncomfortable. Fortunately, Xia Ze only goes through the motions at court each time, barely saying a few words before leaving without care. He was still the same useless emperor in their impression, and the officials finally breathed a sigh of relief. How could a useless emperor strive for diligent governance? What a joke. At the very start of today's court session, a large group of officials from the eunuch faction, including the chief minister of the Court of Judicial Review, the left vice minister, and the right administrator, impeached Ma Sheng for arbitrarily dismissing over a dozen officials from the Ministry of Justice. Ma Sheng is using public office to settle personal vendettas, disregarding the responsibilities of the Ministry of Justice. Ma Sheng is appointing his cronies, forming cliques for private gain, and turning the Ministry of Justice into his own Ma family possession. Your Majesty must no longer allow Ma Sheng to act recklessly and arbitrarily in the Ministry of Justice. Ma Sheng, that stubborn old man, darkened his face and walked up to the left vice minister of the Court of Judicial Review, who had spoken the most harshly. He said coldly, "Say one more word, and for the next month, I will do nothing but investigate you. If you're truly clean, I will accept my defeat. But if not, you will enjoy a few years in my Ministry of Justice prison." Hearing Ma Sheng's harsh words, the left vice minister's breath caught. Which official who joined the eunuch faction could be clean? For a moment, he stammered, unable to speak. Seeing the left vice minister fall silent, Ma Sheng turned his gaze to the others, his eyes sharp and his presence domineering. All of those people had dirty records one by one. They averted their eyes, not daring to meet Ma Sheng's glare. It was indeed a bad decision to let Ma Sheng become the Minister of Justice. The court suddenly fell silent. Xia Ze, seated on the dragon throne, smiled. This old man truly had skill, instantly suppressing the arrogant demeanor of the eunuch faction. "Lord Ma, why did you dismiss those officials?" he asked, feigning seriousness. "I had to give those useless eunuch scum some face-saving explanation. A bunch of good-for-nothings in the Ministry of Justice who do nothing but eat and loaf. What use is keeping them? Not only will I dismiss them, but I will also investigate their corruption and bribery. Not one of them will escape." Ma Sheng's words immediately made the eunuch faction feel as if they had thorns in their backs, extremely uncomfortable. This old man cannot be kept. Your subject accuses Ding Ji, a director of the Ministry of War, of allowing his servants to commit violent acts in the streets, illegally lending money, encroaching on farmland, exploiting the people, and accepting bribes. These are the evidences I have gathered. Please, Your Majesty, look them over. Unexpectedly, Bai Yi, a director of the Ministry of Rights, stepped forward to impeach Ding Ji, and he had seriously collected a large amount of evidence. All the members of the eunuch faction glared angrily at Prime Minister Chao among the crowd. Because Bai Yi is a member of the Chancellor's faction, Bai Yi's actions clearly indicate that Chancellor Chao directed him. Is this a declaration of war against their eunuch faction? But what they didn't expect was that Chancellor Chao himself was bewildered. Bai Yi had never consulted him about this move. Usually Bai Yi is the most timid and cautious today. He must have taken the wrong medicine. What exactly did Ding Ji do to provoke Bai Yi? Your Majesty, I am wronged. Ding Ji was taken aback, then stepped forward and quickly cried out. He cast a strange glance at Bai Yi, thinking this guy must have lost his mind to attack him. Wronged? Bullshit. The evidence is as solid as a mountain. Let's see how you deny it now. Xia Ze only glanced briefly at the memorial presented by Bai Yi, his eyes blazing with anger, instantly clenching his fists and grinding his teeth. Making a grinding sound, he furiously threw it to the ground. Guards, throw Ding Ji into the Ministry of Justice prison. This case is now transferred to the Ministry of Justice. Minister Ma, you must thoroughly investigate this corrupt official. Your servant obeys the order. Ma Sheng said with a vigorous voice. When a eunuch faction saw that the case had been handed over to Ma Sheng, they panicked. That was like a lamb walking into a tiger's den. There was no chance to manipulate it. Ding Ji was as good as finished. Your Majesty, the Ministry of Justice has dismissed many officials and is now short-staffed. This case will be difficult to investigate. The affairs of my Ministry of Justice are none of your business as an outsider. I will see this case through. The Court of Judicial Review should keep its nose out, or I'll start investigating you first. Ma Sheng showed no respect for the eunuch faction, stating firmly with a strong stance. Encountering such a fearless, stubborn old man was indeed a misfortune for the eunuch faction. The key was that this old man was alone with no attachments, no weaknesses to exploit, neither threats nor bribes worked on him. Seeing the eunuchs thwarted, Xia Ze almost couldn't hold back a laugh. Having this stubborn old man in court would make things much more interesting from now on. Seeing there was nothing left to attend to, he immediately ordered the court session adjourned. Because the real show was about to begin. Bai Yi pretended to remain calm as he walked out of the Golden Throne Hall. But just as he reached the Taihe Gate, a stray arrow came flying from hundreds of meters away. Whoosh, a single arrow pierced his heart. With a look of terror in his eyes, Bai Yi died under that arrow. An assassin, a guard exclaimed. At that moment, the civil and military officials who had just exited witnessed Bai Yi's murder. Except for Ma Sheng, who showed no fear, the rest were panic-stricken and fled recklessly back into the Golden Throne Hall. Ma Sheng rushed to Bai Yi's side, hoping to administer emergency treatment, but it was too late. What a pity. The eunuch faction has grown so audacious. The stubborn old man let out a chilling snort, his murderous intent unmistakable. Before long, the entire imperial palace was under martial law. Xia Ze, his face as dark as water, arrived at the scene of Bai Yi's assassination. He stared at Bai Yi's unclosed eyes in death, his own eyes blazing with rage as he cursed. Wang Mu, how do you conduct your duty? Under your very nose, someone managed to kill a high-ranking minister in the palace, in front of all the civil and military officials. What use have I for a right guard general of the Imperial Guard like you? Today, a random person could kill the Minister of Rights. Tomorrow, might an assassin infiltrate the Qianqing Palace and kill me as well? A tall general who appeared before Xia Ze immediately knelt to beg forgiveness upon hearing these words. It was this general's negligence. I have already sealed off the palace. As long as the assassin is still within the palace, I will surely capture him and deliver a satisfactory account to your Majesty. And if you fail to catch him, what will you use to explain? Xia Ze raised an eyebrow and asked coldly. Wang Mu broke out in a cold sweat, gritting his teeth, unsure of what to say. I give you 3 days. If you haven't found the assassin in 3 days, you will no longer serve as the left guard general of the Imperial Guards. After speaking with extreme dissatisfaction, Xia Ze flicked his sleeves and left. However, a faint hint of a satisfied smile rippled at the corner of his lips. After Xia Ze had walked far away, Prime Minister Chao appeared beside Wang Mu. Lord Prime Minister, the eunuch faction has gone too far this time. Killing a court physician in public like this, they have completely disregarded us. Their actions are far too reckless. Wang Mu's face showed indignation, his teeth grinding as he growled in a low voice. He was a core member of the Prime Minister's faction. Prime Minister Chao frowned, a hint of puzzlement in his eyes, and said, "For some reason, I, the Prime Minister, feel that today's events are somewhat suspicious. Prime Minister, the matter is so clear. How could there be any suspicion? This is the palace. Only Su Yong could have planted the assassin. That dog emperor's words weren't wrong. Today Su Yong and his ilk can kill Bai Yi. Tomorrow they might kill you, Prime Minister, or us. We need to prepare early." Wang Mu urged from the side. As for suspecting Xia Ze, that useless emperor would never dare do something like this. I'd die before believing it. Let's find the assassin first. This is a good chance to suppress some eunuch faction forces and avenge Bai Yi. If we can't find him, then we'll find a scapegoat to take the fall. Prime Minister Chao thought for a moment and said calmly, "Yes, Prime Minister." Wang Mu's eyes lit up, and he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. When Xia Ze returned to the Qinqing Palace, he saw Tang Lai, dressed in black martial attire. "Your humble servant has not failed his mission. I have eliminated a treacherous minister for your majesty." It was this very Tang Lai who had killed Bai Yi. "Your majesty is truly formidable. First, you had Lord Yuan uncover a mountain of Bai Yi's crimes to cut off his escape. Then you had his family seized and threatened, forcing him to testify against Deng Ji today. Afterwards, he had General Tang secretly assassinate Bai Yi and frame the eunuch faction, making the two factions tear each other apart, greatly weakening the power of both the Chancellor's faction and the eunuch faction. Thus, His Majesty had the opportunity to use the 3-day deadline to seize Wang Mu's position as Right Guard General, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. His Majesty's great talent and bold vision make him a truly wise ruler of our time." Wei Yan sidled up to Xia Ze and showered him with sycophantic praise. Xia Ze felt pleased and laughed heartily, saying, "Wei Yan, your mouth must have been dipped in honey today. All right, later go to the imperial kitchen and get 5 tails of candied fruit. Eat more." "Thank you for your Majesty's gracious gift," Wei Yan said, his face full of joy. "Your Majesty must be wary of Wang Mu using a scapegoat in the end." Tang Lai reminded from aside, thinking of how His Majesty had effortlessly crushed the power of the Chancellor's faction and the eunuch faction within the court and palace. He couldn't help but feel deep admiration. The formerly inept emperor must have been biding his time all along, waiting for the right moment to reveal his sharpest fangs. Great Shu can be saved. I have taken this matter into consideration. That Wang Mu still wants to stir for 3 days? In his dreams. My Imperial Guard should be fully taken back. Xia Ze let out a cold laugh, with immense confidence bursting in his eyes. The art of imperial power was thoroughly displayed by him at this moment. After Xia Ze arranged for Tang Lai to leave, a maid came, saying that Consort Su had invited him. Since he woke up, Consort Su had invited him several times, but he hadn't gone. This was improper. In broad daylight, he also doubted that Consort Su would dare do anything to him. Then he followed the maid to the Fengyi Palace. The maid led Xia Ze into a splendidly decorated room and then withdrew. And only then did Xia Ze realize that this was a carefully crafted hot spring chamber. Amid the steaming mist, a graceful figure was sitting by the hot spring, extending her fair and delicate feet along the pebbles at the edge into the water. She was dressed entirely in white, her head tilted downward, long eyelashes drooping. Her slender waist was so delicate it seemed to barely bear its own weight, and her fair neck set off her soft hair, strands falling all the way to her pale hips, dancing in the wind. As she quietly turned her head, sunlight spilled over her enchanting face. Her eyes sparkled with allure, and her lips bloomed like flowers as she giggled softly. "Your Majesty, you have arrived." She was as radiant as a peach blossom, dazzling and captivating undeniably Consort Su. Xia Ze hadn't expected Consort Su to resort to such seduction. His breath immediately quickened. Consort Su slowly turned around, facing Xia Ze directly. She raised both arms high behind her head and coiled her hair up. Her pose was graceful, emphasizing her voluptuous charm. Xia Ze stared, utterly spellbound. Seeing him so mesmerized, Consort Su seemed quite pleased. Her eyes burned into him, the corners brimming with amorous intent. Your Majesty, do come here. Xia Ze's body burned with passion, blood rushing. His eyes reddened, and he charged forward, instantly embracing the irresistibly seductive Consort Su. Again, he smelled her rich scent, felt her smooth skin, and sensed her graceful limbs winding around him like a snake, her moist, warm lips pressed against his face. He didn't know how much time had passed before Xia Ze slowly regained consciousness. Then he found himself lying in a bed. In his memory, wasn't he just entwined with Imperial Consort Su in the hot spring? Imperial Consort Su truly was a devilish seductress. I'm still a bit dizzy. Xia Ze propped himself up, called the maids outside to help him dress, and asked with confusion, "How did I end up here? Where has Imperial Consort Su gone?" The attending maid immediately replied, "Your Majesty, have you forgotten that you had some wine with Her Highness in the hot spring? After playing until you were both tired, you fell into a deep slumber. Her Highness ordered us to escort you here to rest. She was worn out from your exertions and is now soaking in the bath. We had wine." Xia Ze couldn't recall much. His mind was foggy, and many things were hazy. He sniffed himself and seemed to catch a whiff of alcohol. Yawning, he walked out of Fengyi Palace. Outside, the sky was gradually getting dark. On the way, Xia Ze suddenly spoke to Wei Yan. "Summon physician Xue to the palace to see me, but don't let anyone know." "Yes, Your Majesty." After physician Xue entered the palace, Xia Ze asked with a serious expression, "Physician Xue, is there any drug in this world that, when smelled, can cause hallucinations?" If he had been drinking before consorting with Imperial concubine Su, it would make sense for him to have hazy memories of the pleasure afterward. But throughout the whole process, he couldn't recall drinking at all. There was a major problem. He couldn't even remember the details of his intimate encounter with Imperial concubine Su. He only felt it was wonderful and worth savoring, but the sensation felt too unreal. Hallucinogenic mushrooms, datura, and salvia divinorum all have the effect of inducing hallucinations. Physician Xue replied, after a moment of thought, "I suspect I was poisoned with a hallucinogen just now." "Physician Xue, is there a way to verify this?" Dr. Xue was startled. How could the emperor be suspected of poisoning again within just 2 days? How many people were trying to harm his majesty? "May I trouble your majesty to grant me a vial of your dragon urine, so I can test it with a silver needle?" Dr. Xue has only been in the Imperial Hospital for 2 days, and he is already speaking so amusingly. Xia Ze then dismissed everyone and sent the collected dragon urine to Dr. Xue. Before long, Dr. Xue hurried into the Qianxing Palace with a grave expression and said, "Your Majesty, I report that you have indeed been poisoned with datura. Once datura is ground into powder and placed in a sachet, the released fragrance can instantly make one lose their senses, uncontrollably conjuring the woman in their mind at that moment, and then sinking into the lustful fantasies with her, unable to escape." Dr. Xue's words thoroughly cleared up Xia Ze's confusion. Even if he were that depraved, he wouldn't have completely lost control and charged a consort, Su, just from seeing her bathing. It was indeed the datura's fragrance that had influenced him. "Your Majesty, this servant recalls that consort Su has a dedicated flower garden in her backyard, where she seems to have planted many flowers and plants." Wei Yan said from the side, "Go and secretly pull out 2 plants for me." After a moment, Wei Yan returned to the Qianxing Palace holding 2 small, brightly colored flowers. After examining the 2 red flowers, Dr. Xue confirmed them to be datura. At that moment, a flicker of coldness passed through Xia Ze's eyes. What a consort Su, she actually dares to deceive him with datura. This is an act of treason and deceiving the emperor. This charge alone is enough to send consort Su to the cold palace. This is the end for the Su siblings. "Dr. Xue, how have things been at the Imperial Hospital these past few days?" Xia Ze calmed himself and asked. After all, he was the one who got Dr. Xue into the Imperial Hospital, so he couldn't just ignore him. Unexpectedly, Dr. Xue hemmed and hawed for a long time before finally saying, "It's fine." Seeing this, Xia Ze instantly understood. This Dr. Xue, who was parachuted in as the top director of the Imperial Medical Academy, seems not to be doing very well there. A bunch of useless Imperial physicians who want to poison me should have kept quiet. Now, they dare to mess around? simply seeking death. Dr. Xue, let's go. I'll go with you to the Imperial Medical Academy. After saying that, Xia Ze strode out quickly. Dr. Xue had no choice but to quickly follow. At that moment, many Imperial physicians were preparing to leave work and go home, but they were blocked by Xia Ze. It's still early. The director hasn't left yet. Why are you leaving? The director is the official head of the Imperial Medical Academy. After the previous Wang physician was arrested, Xia Ze appointed Dr. Xue as the director. For this reason, many censors had submitted memorials in the past few days, accusing him of arbitrarily appointing a civilian doctor as a fourth-rank director. But he completely ignored those censors' memorials. Those Imperial physicians saw Xia Ze appear here. Each of them realized that Dr. Xue had gone to complain to Xia Ze and immediately showed mocking expressions. A civilian quack who got lucky is worthy of being the director of the Imperial Medical Academy? It was a joke. Was he even worthy? Plus, Xia Ze's harsh tone made it clear he was deliberately looking for trouble. So no one paid any attention to Xia Ze's words, remaining silent. I asked you all a question, and no one answers? Are you all mute? Xia Ze suddenly raised his voice, his tone becoming much sharper. Still, none of the Imperial physicians spoke up, and the atmosphere grew extremely awkward. No wonder Imperial physician Wang had dared to help consort Su poison him. Looking at these powerless Imperial physicians who even dared to ignore Xia Ze like this, one could tell how low the Emperor's position was in everyone's eyes. But he was not the original owner. These physicians had picked the wrong person to mess with. Since you are all mutes, there is no need for you to remain in the Imperial Hospital. All of you are dismissed. Go back home. An elderly Imperial physician stepped out from the crowd and said expressionlessly to Xia Ze, "Your servant is old and frail, and it is time to retire and return to one's hometown. I will no longer stay in the Imperial Hospital." As soon as he finished speaking, as if triggering a chain reaction, the remaining physicians also stepped forward and submitted their resignations. All the Imperial physicians resigning? Huh. Xia Ze's face was dark, without a trace of smile, his expression rigid and cold. He roared furiously, his voice rolling like thunder, carrying far and wide. "I now suspect you are all involved in Imperial physician Wang's attempt to poison me. Men, seize these traitors and throw them into the Ministry of Punishment's prison. Then, by my decree, arrest their entire families as well. For matters like facing execution, a family should always be together, neat and tidy." At that moment, Hu Che drew his blade and led dozens of guards charging forward, mercilessly arresting all those Imperial physicians. This time, it was the Imperial physicians' turn to be dumbfounded. How could they have imagined that Xia Ze would dare to arrest them and fabricate such a serious crime as poisoning the Emperor? He even arrested their family members. How had this weak Emperor become so tyrannical and violent? Then they saw Xia Ze turn and leave, not even giving them a chance to explain themselves. They were truly panicked. "Your Majesty, this old servant's granddaughter is the concubine of Duke Su's younger brother. If you arrest me, it will be hard to explain to Duke Su, won't it?" The old Imperial physician who first stepped forward as the spearhead shouted again with impunity. Xia Ze indeed stopped in his tracks. His forehead veins bulged, and with a venomous sneer he said fiercely, "Hu Che, hang his head at the gate of the Imperial Hospital as a warning to others." "Yes, Your Majesty." Hu Che swung his sword brutally and chopped off the old physician's head in one stroke. Thud! Several old physicians, witnessing this, turned pale and panicked, collapsing onto the ground in terror. His Majesty is truly intent on killing. What to do? "Your Majesty, I was foolish, deceived by Physician Zhang. He coerced me into resigning with him. I never truly wanted to resign. Your Majesty, I am guilty, truly guilty. I should not have followed Physician Zhang in such a foolish act. Your Majesty, Xia Ze ignored them completely and walked forward on his own. If you dare threaten him, you should be prepared to pay a heavy price. In this vast world, can't we find a group of skilled physicians to serve as officials? Your Majesty, I wish to expose the eunuch Su Min, supervisor of the Imperial Horse Supervisorate, who forced me to administer drugs to Consort Wu, causing her miscarriage. How dare you? His Majesty has issued an edict to arrest the chief eunuch Su Min. How dare you obstruct us? Do you all want to be dismissed and thrown into the Imperial prison?" Wei Yan roared fiercely, his demeanor aggressive. He led 100 guards intending to enter the Imperial Horse Supervisorate, but was met with strong resistance from the 4-guard soldiers. Hundreds of 4-guard soldiers directly pointed their swords and spears at them, forbidding them to enter. These 4-guard soldiers completely disregarded Wei Yin, the young eunuch. They turned a blind eye to his threats as well. Get lost, get lost, get lost. If you dare take another step forward, don't blame us for being rude. These arrogant soldiers coldly stared at Wei Yin and his men. They were all rolling up their sleeves, looking as if they truly dared to lay hands on Wei Yin and his group. Wei Yin was so furious that he almost wanted to draw his sword and slash at them. At this moment, a pot-bellied middle-aged general walked out from the inner court, followed closely by several hundred soldiers of the 4 guards. "Lord Su!" many soldiers shouted. So this fat middle-aged man was one of the powerful figures of the Eastern Guard of the 4 guards and the Imperial Horse Supervisor. Ah, what a bold eunuch, daring to fabricate His Majesty's decree. Men, seize them all. Unexpectedly, Lord Su immediately turned hostile and gave the order. Nearly 1,000 soldiers of the 4 guards instantly drew their blades and charged forward. Now Wei Yin and his 100-plus men were like sheep entering a tiger's den, instantly surrounded. Stomp, stomp, stomp. A rapid and forceful sound of footsteps suddenly rang out, accompanied by thousands of Imperial Guard soldiers rushing out in orderly formation. Then they came to an abrupt halt, facing off against the 4 guard soldiers. Both sides were at daggers drawn. From among the Imperial Guard troops, Xia Ze strode out with a majestic gait, like a dragon or tiger. He walked straight ahead, expressionless, with cold eyes and an imposing demeanor. Yet several soldiers of the 4th Guard dared to point their blades at him. Xia Ze's brows furrowed in cold fury, his shoulders trembling as he roared in a voice like a great bell. "Block my path, kill them." The moment the words fell, Hu Che charged out like a fierce tiger, and in a flash, 3 swishing strikes of his blade fell. Instantly, 3 corpses lay slumped on the ground. A clamor erupted from the 4th Guard, and they even dared to riot and surge forward. Xia Ze's rage, like a surging flood that had suddenly burst its banks, was unstoppable. His face red and neck bulging, he bellowed, "Let any one of the 4th Guard dare to move, and they shall be convicted of treason. The Imperial Guard will execute them on the spot, and their entire family will be slaughtered, not one spared."